very unimplementable mortgage, with the only collateral being the future and destinies of both our youths and unborn generations. How can the government borrow to fund non-productive sectors of our economy? Recently, they told us they are constructing railway from Kano to Katsina to this to Niger. What is the economic gain we get from Niger? That a rail line should run there. Why we don't have one in the southeast and southwest? How can the government, okay, all we hear is about debt servicing. Nobody is talking about debt repayment. Our education sector is in shambles. If you read recently the 50-point agenda or reasons why ASU is on strike, you will run from this country. It's a disaster, our education system. I read about 3 universities in the north that have only 4 professors. University with 4 professors. It's a disaster. Our health sector is in a very embarrassing mess, confirmed by the Secretary to the federal government. After his inauguration as chairman of PTF, he opened his mouth to a national broadcast. Number 4 citizen of Nigeria, and said he didn't know that our health sector is in that bad state. Secretary to the federal government. We vividly recount with shame and disgust that doctors who graduated from Indian medical schools and universities were not allowed to practice in Nigeria in the 80s, if you remember. Simply because Indian medical training and medical schools were deemed substandard by Nigerian government that time. Today, not only that India hosts the greatest numbers of medical tourists annually from Nigeria, but Indian doctors have become revered small gods in medicine in Nigeria. In that period, Nigerians taunted, that is early 80s, Nigerians taunted Ghanaians residing in the land with the slogan, Ghana must go. Because we consider the economy very inferior to us. Today, the table has shamefully turned. It is now Nigeria must go in Ghana. It's a shame. And our politicians are still talking. Without mincing words, this country is on reverse gear in her movement as far as education, healthcare, agriculture, security, economy are concerned. When shall we stop this primitive laziness encouraging monthly revenue sharing formula of existence to our governors? This is exactly why many state governors are bereft of creative, technocratic, ideological, business-minded governance strategy and acumen. There is no alternative to meaningful diversification of economy. Going to get a federal allocation every month, we must remain backward forever. No nation of the world does it, except Nigeria. Without an iota of apology to political gladiators of the Mr. President, this country is on a very fast lane of grinding to a halt if nothing positively drastic is done for the rescue of our economy, education, judiciary, and security. Nigeria currently is a slave and sublet of the sovereign nation of China. Why is it impossible to make all refineries in Nigeria fully functional? Why is it an impossible mountain to climb for the federal government of Nigeria to fix the power sector? These are questions beckoning for answer. Which nation of the world drives her economy and technologies on electric generator? Any regime of government in Nigeria that successfully fixes the power sector in this country has solved the problem of Nigeria to 65% level. Kama 2020. The Company and Allied Matters Act 2020 bill recently signed into law by the President Muhammad Buhari is a sheer demonstration of distracted and misdirected leadership. The church cannot be brought under the unintelligent and novice interference from politicians and secular entities. Passing a law that you can at will change and replace the trustees of the church is totally wrong and so unacceptable. You don't bring secular mantle upon a sacred mountain. We advise the federal government to rescind this law and this decision immediately. Hike in petrol pump price. In human resource management and economic indices and index allotment sensitivity is a grand foundation upon which progress and advancements are made. I keep on wondering if our politicians are ever sensitive to the plight of Nigerians. For God's sake, how can any right-thinking leader assume that this is the right time to increase pump price of petrol by whatever guise and explanation? The monumental negative economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic and the attendant lockdown are so glaring throughout the whole world. The only cushioning gift our dear president and his advisors can give to Nigerians is hike in pump price and electricity tariff. This is a gross demonstration of combination of ineptitude, incompetence, and wickedness. Anambra State. We want to appreciate and thank the Executive Governor of Anambra State, His Excellency Chief Wid Madabuchi Obiano, for his efforts in making sure that Anambra State is well secured. Let us very specially, mark where I'm reading now, let us very specially thank him for the way he handled the COVID-19 pandemic in the state. Many of us don't really know the main reason why Anambra State recorded and is still recording the least number of cases of coronavirus infection in South, Southeast geopolitical zones. The Anambra State governor is the only governor in these zones that never openly or outrightly directed in all his broadcasts that churches should be shut down. That was a very good thing. He never said it. For one day, I followed all his directives and all his broadcasts. The governor never said it, so we commend him. When we notice that we mobilize constant prayers of both the governor and Anambra State throughout the critical period of the pandemic, so that people will not, when we have more than serious cases, as they say, it's because he didn't shut down churches. So we began to pray here. Say, God, because we are not honored you by not shutting churches, honor him by protecting Anambrarians. And God did it. We asked and pleaded with God to honor our governor since he did not shut down churches, thereby honoring God by divinely protecting Anambra State and Anambra from the deadly virus. God indeed answered our prayers. To him alone be all the glory and adoration now and forevermore. We wish to call the attention of our governor to the pitiable state of roads in the state. Before now, Anambra State had the best road networks in the whole Southeast and South-South. Today, the situation is becoming very bad and unbearable. Let His Excellency reactivate the State Road Maintenance Agency and put them to work. Again, the quality and caliber of road construction companies handling road projects in Anambra State leaves much to be desired. No road in Anambra State survives more than one rainy season. That's a deadly thing. You don't use that to compensate your political supporters. This is our common tax money. In another development, we sincerely remind our governor that you have barely 1 year and few months to complete your second tenure in office. While we are happy and commend you for the cargo airport your administration started building, we charge you to channel your last efforts towards completing and delivering that project before handing over to your successor. It will be an unforgettable legacy if Your Excellency can make that airport your parting gift to Anambra. Your successor may not see that project as his priority, so the tendency of abandoning it is very high, and our money will be wasted forever. It is our great desire to appeal to His Excellency to think of any economically or educationally viable project to site in this part of Anambra State, known as Diocese of Amichi. It is a very known fact that there is no government presence here throughout the diocese. Is it not possible to be a campus, build a campus of OKECHUKWU here? Or any other university or tertiary institution here? We also call on His Excellency to ensure that in the forthcoming governorship election in Anambra State, equity, justice, and fair play are upheld. The gentleman's zoning arrangement and agreement should be observed in all areas, including denominational divide. The theme of the Synod. The theme of this third session of the fourth Synod of our diocese is, do not be conformed to this world. Romans 12 verse 2. We don't intend to do a very exhaustive exposition on the theme because we have prayerfully invited very seasoned and versatile preachers to dwell on the theme extensively as main speaker, expositor, and Bible study facilitator. However, we need to dig a little deep into the demands, implications, and imperatives of Synod theme on us as individual Christians and as a church. And our text reads, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Romans 12 verse 2, New King James Version of the Bible. Background. Apostle Paul's letter to the Christian community in Rome is one of the most important theological documents and spiritual assertions ever written. The influence of this epistle on the church has been very enormous. The epistle has decisively shaped and influenced the teaching of St. Augustine, John Calvin, Martin Luther, and John Wesley. Romans is not only a systematic theology, but also a letter written in specific historical circumstances. Paul's letters are often classified in more topical fashion into 4 groups. The first comprising Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and Galatians, are sometimes described as the great evangelical letters. The first 3 were written during Paul's 3rd missionary journey. The second group is called the captivity or prison letters, since each of them Paul refers to himself as a prisoner. The third group was 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. The fourth group are the pastoral letters, which comprises of 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. Paul's epistle provides us with the doctrinal, ethical, spiritual culmination of the salvation historical movement of the Bible. Romans, which is adjudged by Bible scholars as Paul's greatest work, is placed first among his 13 epistles in the New Testament. The letter was written to prepare the way for a visit Paul planned to make to the church in Rome. While the four Gospels present the words and works of Jesus Christ, Romans explores the significance of his sacrificial death, as we see in Romans 5 verse 8. After greeting the church in Rome and telling them of his prayers for them, Paul states the theme and purpose of the epistle thus: for therein there is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. Romans 1:17. In chapters 2 to 4, Paul describes the new life in union with Christ that results from this new relationship with God. Chapters 5 to 8 discusses the purpose of law of God and the power of God's Spirit in the believer's life. Chapters 9 to 11 deals with God's salvation plan for the nation of Israel and the adoption opportunity for the Gentiles. Finally, Paul writes about how the Christian life should be lived in the face of antagonism, persecution, and deprivation. Chapters 12 to 16, he concludes the epistle with personal greetings, messages, and words of recognition. This classic epistle was believed to have been written around AD 757 after the death of Claudius the emperor, who expelled the Jews from Rome in AD 49. Key words in our theme explained: conform. To conform, this is one of the most active and critical words in the theme we are considering. It can be used as both a transitive and intransitive verb. As a transitive verb, to conform means: 1, to make like or of the same form or type. 2, to adapt or adapt to. 3, to adjust in order to be of the same manner, image, equality, and attitude. As an intransitive verb, it means to comply with, to obey and follow the pattern of, to be or become of the same brand, form, type, or make. 4, to accommodate so as to toe the same line. The rendition of our Bible text by the New Living Translation of the Bible renders more elucidation in the word conform. It quotes this way: do not copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Number 2, the standard of the world. In every facet of life, there are 2 major patterns and standards for doing things and for living. They are the pattern, standard, and system of the world. These 2 standards, the pattern and standard of God or system of the world, these 2 standards are often represented by light or darkness. The standard of the world is described as the broad way and the easy way, as seen in Matthew chapter 7, 13, and 14. It says, enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. There are many who go in by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Matthew 7, 13 to 14. The standard of the world is diametrically opposed to the standard of God. Lying and cheating are acceptable standards in the world. This is exactly what God is saying through the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 55 verses 8 and 9. I quote, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than yours, and my thoughts than yours, and your thoughts." End of quote. The culture, custom, and traditions of the world are totally different from the cultures, customs, and traditions of God. One of the cultures and traditions of the world is vengeance, revenge, and retaliation, and tit for tat. But the standard culture of God and Christianity is forgiveness, forbearance, and agape love. Another standard of this world is killing and murder, as inaugurated and instituted by Cain in Genesis chapter 4 verse 8. Now Cain talked with Abel his brother, And it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and killed him. End of quote. This is why killing has become acceptable standard and way of life for the people of the world. They kill by abortion, poisoning, shooting, bombing, arson, etc. The next standard of the world, which is Christians are instructed to avoid, is sexual perversion. There are various forms of sexual perversions which the world has adopted as normal and acceptable standard of life. Such include homosexuality, which include lesbianism as initiated in Genesis chapter 19, 4-10. Now, before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, surrounded the house, and they called to Lot and said to him, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us that we may know them carnally." So Lot went out to them through the doorway, shut the door behind him, and said, "Please, my brethren, do not do so wickedly." And they said, "Stand back." Then they said, "This one came in to stay here, and he keeps acting as a judge. Now we will deal worse with him than with them." So they pressed hard against the man Lot and came near to breaking down the door. End of quote. The other form of sexual perversion which has become a standard of the world is incest. Incest is sexual intercourse between people who are so closely biologically related that marriage is prohibited between them. This is the latest onslaught against humanity globally. Today, siblings have sex with their brothers and sisters with reckless abandon. Fathers have sexual intercourse with their biological daughters. Mothers happily engage in sexual activities with their biological sons. It was the daughters of Lot that introduced this behavioral absurdity and abomination, which has become a norm for the 21st century globalized generation, as seen in Genesis chapter 19, 31-36. I read. Now the firstborn daughter said to her younger sister, "Our father is old, and there is no man on earth to come in to us as is the custom of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve lineage of our father." So they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn daughter went in and lay with her father. And the father did not know when she lay down or when she arose. Then they made their father drink wine again that night also. And the youngest daughter arose and lay with him. And he did not know when she lay down nor when she arose. Thus, both the daughters of Lot were pregnant for their father. Other sexual perversions include bestiality, gayism, transgenderism, anal sex, and cyber sex, etc. The standard of the world covers every aspect of human existence. It is in a bid to destroy God's standard and pattern of living in the world and establish the satanic standard of the world that a renowned feminist and female satanist called Alice Bailey sent a 10-point plan or charter of the New World Order which were adopted by the UN before the woman died 63 years ago. The purpose of the charter to her and her colleagues of Satanists is to change Judeo-Christian tradition or to redeem the nations of the world from Judeo-Christian tradition and standard. And these are the 10 points charter content, so that you know when this battle for conformity started. And number one, according to Alice Bailey, this was adopted by UN about 67 years ago, and they're implementing it today. The aim was to force Christians to conform to the standard of the world. Look at the 10-point agenda. Number one, take God and prayer out of education system. She said in that document, Change curriculum to ensure that children are freed from the bondage of Christian culture. If you take God out of education, they will unconsciously form a resolve that God is not necessary to face life. In the Western world, that is the issue now. Number 2, they said, reduce parental authority over children. She said in the breakdown, break the communication between parent and child so that parents do not pass on their Christian tradition to their children. You see where this whole thing started? Liberate children from parental tradition and control. Promote excessive child rights. Abolish corporal punishment both at home and in school so that these children can be destroyed. Number 3, destroy Judeo-Christian traditional family structure. It's a comprehensive package from the pit of hell. And Christians are sleeping. According to her, if you break the family, you break the nation. Liberate the young people from the confines of this structure. Promote sexual promiscuity. Free young people to the concept of premarital sex. You see the agenda. Let them have free sex. Lift sex so high that the joy of enjoying sex is the highest joy in life. Fantasize sex, that everybody will feel proud to be seen to be sexually active outside the marriage. Use advertising industries, media, TV, magazine, film industry to promote sexual enjoyment as the highest pleasure in humanity. What are we suffering today? Even when they want to advertise tire of a vehicle, they will show you naked women. It's an organized thing for conformity, and it has come into the church. Number 4, the woman, the Satanist through the woman wrote to UN and said, if sex is free, then make abortion legal and make it easy. She said further, build clinics for abortion even in schools. If people are to enjoy sex, they need to be free from the unnecessary fear of unwanted pregnancy. That's why I must commend President Trump. At the heat of the COVID-19, he made a broadcast. I say, I feel ashamed and very disturbed that you can declare doctors who are even abortionists as men on essential duties, while you exclude leaders of faith from essential services. And he said, I therefore declare all leaders of faith, Christian leaders and pastors, as men on essential services. That's what he declared. Number 5, they continue by saying, make divorce easy and legal, and free people from the concepts of marriage for life. Number 6, make homosexuality an alternative lifestyle. At least posited, people should be allowed in whichever form they choose, they want, whether it is homosexuality or incest or bestiality, as long as the two people agree or the person finds pleasure and satisfaction in it. So many nations of the world have since legalized homosexuality and gayism as a normal way of life, contrary to the provisions of the scripture. These are the battles for conformity to the world. Number 7, he said, debase art. People of God, listen to what is happening here. He said, debase art and make art, A-R-T, run mad and riot. He said, Ali said, promote new forms of art which will corrupt and defy the imagination of people, because art is the language of the spirit. If at a hotel, they say, once you check into hotel, they draw a lot of terrible things in a room. Sometimes I'll come in and I turn the thing. Number 8, use media to promote and change mindset. Alice Bailey said that the greatest channel you need to use to change human attitude is media. Use of the press, the radio, the TV, the cinema, the advertising agencies, billboards, magazines, and now the internet and social media. It's an organized war. And number 9, create, listen very well. He said, create an interfaith movement. You know, when we look at things, they look wonderful on the surface. Interfaith movement. What is the aim? Say, according to the Satanists, promote other faiths to be at par with Christianity and break this thing about Christianity as being the only way to heaven. By that, Christianity will be pulled down and other faiths promoted. And finally, they said, get governments to make all these laws and get the church to endorse these laws. Today, people are being wedded in overseas, man, woman. Preach a sermon against homosexuality overseas, they will arrest you. He said, Alice Bailey wrote that the church must change its doctrine and accommodate the people by accepting these things and put them into its structures and systems. Beloved people, can you see why and how? The theme of this synod is not only apt but existentially critical for the church to radically heed the injunction of our text. Do not be conformed to this world. The battle is grossly decisive. More importantly, the pressure to lower the Christian standard has shifted from the Western world to the African continent. Today, the Western world is not struggling to resist this because the New Age movement focused primarily on the West, because that was the Christian world in the 19th century. As they were about to celebrate their success in the West, they discovered that Christianity has migrated to the rest of the world. So now the battle for conformity is shifted to Africa, with all the resources available to the West. The clarion call remains, Christian, seek not yet repose. Hear thy guardian angel say, thou art in the midst of foes. Watch and pray. Conformity in worship in the Old Testament. As a nation and people, Israel was specifically chosen by Yahweh from among all the nations of the world to worship and serve God solely under special covenant of monotheism. God vehemently charged them not to have any other God or bow down to any deity from him, apart from him, no matter what the multitude and generality of the nations around them are doing. He covenanted with them through Moses on Mount Sinai when God spoke to them thus. And Moses went up to God, and the Lord called him from the mountain, saying, thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and I will tell the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. Exodus chapter 19, 3-6. The worship of God has always been according to God's precepts, principles, prescriptions, and commandments. God has never tolerated syncretism, dual loyalty, conformity, or compromise from people who worship and serve him. Irrespective of what is in vogue anywhere, God's standard must be kept and observed dutifully and uncompromisingly. God has been and still is the God of order, principle, perfection, and holiness. Nothing on earth makes God to accept any form of contamination or change of rules in worshiping him. His demand for absolute holiness, consecration, and orderliness is sacrosanct. God therefore categorically gave the Torah and the Decalogue to the Israelites as a parameter and plumb line in their worship life and daily living anywhere and anytime. In Exodus chapter 21-17, God gave the people the standard they must keep in worshiping him. Verses 1 to 5 says the pivotal foundation in their worship and relationship with Yahweh thus. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image, any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth, on the water, under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation